How you doing, folks? Welcome to another podcast. This is Mr. Green and Doom with
You know it.
Movies and Stuff. This is the Movies and Stuff podcast, and today is going to be just the stuff because we're not going into the movies, but we will be talking about the stuff, which is a nice, basically PC way of what I would have normally said, but it's a
Hey.
it is the podcast that we're going to be discussing anything that's relative in the pop culture landscape. There's going to be movies, TV shows, potentially comic books and whatnot, and franchises, television reviews, anything under the sun, which is why it was listed as the stuff, so it can give me a lot of leeway. There you go, that's the secret. But in this particular episode, the pilot episode, is going to be the birth of it is going to be listed in the CW universe, and it should be noted that because of the randomness of the topics that could be on, the guests or the guest hosts, maybe a rotating cast, and Doom is here because he is a big advocate and fan and follower of the CW universe, or the Arrowverse as it's more commonly referred to. And we're going to talk about that in depth from the start, or at least the preceding shows with Smallville, leading right on up to what we have today. And so let's get this thing rolling. Doom, first off, what's your not your relation to the Arrowverse, but your thoughts on the Arrowverse? Let's kick it off with that.
Okay, my thoughts on the Arrowverse. I'm glad. I thought you never asked. Let me start off with this. I prefer to refer to it as the Flashverse.
Okay, now let's start with that question. Now I know why you like to refer to it as the Flashverse, but let's just go ahead and get this out. Why do you call it the Flashverse?
Well, okay. We all know that these shows, Supergirl. Well, you can't even really count Supergirl, but let's say the Flash
We'll
and
get
Legends
to
of
that.
Tomorrow.
We'll
Let's stick
get
with
to
those
that.
two. They spun off from the Arrow. I give you that. I understand why everybody's saying it's the Arrowverse, and but like I said, in my opinion, if it wasn't for the Flash, DC and CW would not have the success. The success that they have. In my opinion, I could be wrong, but the Flash was the catalyst that I think that catapulted the CW DC universe. So yes, you can technically say it is the Arrowverse, where it started. Those things started from the Arrow. But if I really wanted to be technical, I could call it the possible Smallville universe, because I could have sworn that DC started this off with Smallville, and we had it Oliver Queen and the Green Arrow and all that stuff prior to the Arrow, quote unquote. And most people hated that Oliver Queen, but that's another story. I didn't have a problem with him. I had a problem with this Oliver Queen because going from Smallville and being invested in the Smallville characters, and then they just totally changed it out when it came with the Arrow. I thought they were going to use the same Arrow from Smallville, but they said they decided to go a new way. So there you go, aka the Arrowverse. But like I said, my personal opinion, I think The Flash is a better show. Nothing against the Arrow. Arrow's cool, but Flash is a better show. Legends of Tomorrow, I just say, let's just go with the Flashverse for my.
Okay. Well, let's go back here a little bit, and
okay.
Let's. You brought up a couple of things in there, so we need to go ahead and address those at least bit by bit. The first thing being is that you kind of referenced Smallville, and that the Arrowverse, if you will, could have potentially have been spun off of that, which now the producers of Arrow and the subsequent shows have gone on record to essentially say that, as you said, and I guess I'm going deeper into it now, that they wanted to chart their own course. The quote being, when developing the series, they expressed the idea to chart their own course and their own destiny and avoid any direct connections to the series Smallville, which featured his own Green Arrow. Now that was in essence, the first time that the masses got to see the Green Arrow and other characters, some of which who haven't appeared on in the Arrowverse yet. Well, some of them. Well, I shouldn't say that. I guess if you combine all the shows, a good deal of them have. But they had their
the only
Aquaman.
one that they haven't tackled was Aquaman.
Okay,
I don't think Aquaman has been tackled in the Arrowverse yet, but they did have a version of Aquaman in Smallville. They did have a version of Black Canary in Smallville, which they have a version of Black Canary in the Arrowverse. I mean, there are, but that's the only one that I think they haven't really tackled with Aquaman.
Okay, now they did show several other characters that appeared in there. I guess who was that? Dr. Fate. They tried to do an Aquaman pilot, but what was then not CW, the WB, but that that doesn't exist anymore. That basically has morphed into the CW. So it's all relative. But getting back to the point of talking about the Green Arrow opposed to Arrow and the Arrowverse, the end result is that they did not want to have any connectivity to Smallville. Hence, I know it was disappointing for some people, particularly fans of the original Smallville show. But no, there's no official connection there. However, Smallville is kind of credited with getting the interest behind having that type of television show launched. Would you agree with that?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Totally. Like I said, I may have, went about it in a long, roundabout way, but basically, I agree with you because Smallville was, I think you put it best, the litmus tape, or the litmus test for for the DC television universe, because Smallville, as it eventually evolved into over the years, like you said, they started integrating a lot of the DC Universe characters into it. And that was in the latter years. I would say maybe the last 5 seasons into Smallville. Prior to that, Smallville was basically confined to its own Smallville universe, the whole where you're never gonna see Clark in a suit, and they had their reasons for doing what they wanted to do. But like I said, towards the end of the series, they started integrating so many DC characters into there that it became like, wow, what if they really did, what if they did a show like, the Justice League, because they did an episode where they had the Justice Society.
Yes.
In Smallville, which I thought was great. And, everybody was just, you had the Justice Society, you had them bringing in Oliver Queen, Arrow as a main character in Smallville. They brought in Watchtower. For any comic book fans out there, I got excited. I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but for me as a comic book fan, I got excited. And then we get to the season finale of Smallville. The season finale of Smallville, we actually get to see Clark fly. Somewhat.
Yeah. Somewhat. I mean, they didn't leave you with just a clear shot of him in the suit, the cape, and all that stuff. But you got the unveil of the S and him off in the distance. So you got that.
Yeah.
So I guess it's better than nothing. They held true.
It's better than nothing.
They held true to their what they said. You're never going to see him in the suit. You got a little bit of it, but you never saw him head to toe in the cape, the boots, the whole 9 yards. You didn't get that.
But going back to something that you said a minute ago, okay, about that whole Smallville universe thing, right? With the writers and what they wanted and what they didn't want. The funny thing about that is, as I was reading the other day, the Smallville could be included in the Arrowverse now.
I've heard that theory based on the Arrowverse now, I guess, officially launching their multiverse issues.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I shouldn't say issues, but
Interesting.
officially
Episodes
integrating
or
the idea that there's a multiverse and multiple Earths and multiple realities with multiple versions of these characters. They could, in theory, decide, okay, we're going to bring in the Smallville version of it. Now, none of that's confirmed. I don't want to say that this is what they're doing or that that they're talking about it. This is not
it's
confirmed
rumored.
stuff. It's rumor, but I know a lot of fans have been wanting to see Tom Welling make an appearance in some way, shape, or form, especially as Superman. They wanted him to come back as the Superman in the Supergirl thing, but we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so we jump off of Smallville, which ran
With Justin Hartley as the Arrow.
Justin Hartley as Arrow, and that ran for about 10 seasons. Smallville ended about 2011, and the following year we got Arrow, which is the recognized linchpin of the CW superhero universe, also known as the Arrowverse. Arrow began and aired its first episode October 10th, 2012. For those that are looking for the original appearance of the Arrow, or the Green Arrow, which looked more like Robin Hood at the time, that would be More Fun Comics 73. So that's a long ways back and a big change in the character from that time until now. And the TV show, Arrow has a big change from what it was to what it is. We were just talking about this offline, where the Arrow in its initial phases was essentially, a very grounded show. He didn't have a lot of super powered opposition for him at the time, but that has certainly changed in the seasons that have gone on. Is that well? I mean, you're probably like me in that your viewership of the Arrow has been retroactive. I didn't look at the Arrow while it was live. I kind of went back and watched some of them on Netflix at the time. So,
well, I tried. I tried when it first came out. I did try to watch it when it was live, and it was too slow. I mean, the first season, like you said, you got Oliver Queen, and he comes back to Starling Sea, and he's been missing for a certain amount of time, and then all of a sudden he's having these flashbacks to this island where he's been stranded, like looking like Tom Hanks missing Wilson, and it's just really boring.
or it was. We'll say that now. Or it was. You didn't particularly care for Arrow when it first kicked off. It didn't have enough superhero elements in there for you.
I'm gonna just say it was slow.
It was slow. Okay. Didn't give you what you wanted.
Even with Smallville, if you remember, Smallville had superhero elements in it, but it really wasn't a superhero show. You had Clark, of course.
It turned into.
Not initially. It turned exactly, which is what happened with Arrow. I mean, I don't know if that was the original concept of the writers, that they wanted to do it that way, because you have the Arrow come back. Like I said, he's back in the city. He's been missing. He's trying to right these wrongs. He's fighting, fighting crime. But these criminals are regular criminals. Okay, I fall back on Arrow, kind of miss a few episodes. A few episodes turn into a few seasons. Flash comes out. Boom! I'm super, uber excited about the Flash, right? And then now we start doing crossovers. So I'm like, wow, okay, well, maybe I need to watch the Flash. Maybe I need to watch the Arrow to see, what's going on, the continuity with these crossovers and stuff. And now I go back and I'm like, where the hell did all of these superheroes come from? The last time I watched this show, you had this guy running around beating up mobsters, gangsters, thugs, whatever you want to call them, regular people, regular people. Now I go back, you got Speedy, and I mean, it's just all types of heroes coming out of the woodwork. So I'm like, man, maybe I need to go back and watch the Arrow. I must have missed something exciting. So I will say that I will have to go back and watch Arrow
and finish out the other seasons. Now that's a lot. Now they're about 5 seasons deep. As we're recording this, they're about five seasons deep. So let's address this thing. I mean, what is it that the Flash presented to you that the Arrow didn't? I mean, because you're telling me that you basically got in on the Flash from day one.
Day one, yeah, definitely.
But it took you a little while to get into the Arrow. I mean, and you've been watching kind of sporadically, even though you are a fan and advocate of the CW superhero lineup. But why was Flash different for you?
Good question. Comic book fan. Flash was it seemed to stay true to the comic book lore. First of all, of course, with any show or movie, the writers take their liberties with a lot of certain things. But for me, if you can try to stay as close to the comic book as possible, that's great. Because my theory is the stories, the characters, all of that stuff is already built. It's already there. Don't change it. So with the Flash, yeah, and like I said, not to say that it didn't happen with the Arrow, but the Arrow was slow, and so they may have done the same thing. I don't really know. I can't really speak on it because I would have to really go back and watch it and to really give it a full honest critique. But with the Flash, like you asked me, I enjoyed it because it stayed true to the comic. I mean, the Flash had a shoot. They did the origin story. They did Iris. I mean, and each episode was engaging. From the first season, it kept you engaged with the action. With Arrow is a lot darker. Flash is a lot colorful. It's a lot brighter in Central City. You got a lot of the Flash with his red suit, and Central City is always daytime. For the most part, and the Arrow, it takes place at night and it's dark and
a lot more grimy.
It's a lot more, and I'm not saying that I don't like grimy because I'm a Batman fan, but I just think in the later episodes they may have took some liberties and said, okay, well, the Flash is working, let's start adding some more comic book characters into this. And one of the things that threw me off with the Arrow at first was what they did with the characters. And I think they may have switched some of the characters around and, combined certain characters. You know how a lot of TV shows do sometimes. I'm trying
creative liberties that the producers and writers
Yeah.
Which is not uncommon. They've done it kind of across the board, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But go ahead.
Like Arrow's sister. Mm-hmm. Arrow's sister in the TV show. I'm trying to remember what her name is. But anyway, that was one of the creative liberties that kind of threw me off. So if you notice in the TV show, what they call her, what is her name? It's at the tip of my tongue.
Is it
Speedy?
His sister?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to. I want to say Speedy, which threw me off
because you expected Speedy the sidekick as listed in the comic.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. Exactly. And I'm trying to look it up right now because, like I said, I don't really watch Arrow like that. And like I said, but you asked me why didn't I?
It didn't catch you from the get-go. Is that Thea? Mm-hmm. Thea Queen?
Yeah, right. Thea, right.
Okay.
Thea, right? That's her name. It was at the top of my tongue, right? Thea, but Thea is Speedy.
Mhm.
But more than you would know. You're a comic book guy. Is that who Speedy is in the comic books?
Not initially, but here we are in a era where there's been race and gender swaps to certain characters in the comics as it related to TV and otherwise. I mean, here again, I think we had just talked about the James Olsen thing, opposed to being Jimmy Olsen. But
Right.
as talked about, they can get away with that because they have established a multiverse. So even though it's the character that we have heard of and seen in various forms of media, in the comics and magazines and cartoons and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they can always say, well, that's James Olsen on that Earth. And
right.
no,
And
he's not.
DC is.
Yeah, he's not the freckle redhead guy that we've known from from all the years.
The original Superman.
Yeah, from the original. So there you go. And as far as Speedy's concerned, I mean, I think everybody knows that even dating back to that first appearance of a Green Arrow, which is where Speedy appears. He does appear alongside Green Arrow in More Fun Comics. That was in 1941. For anybody that's wanting to know, and their listings were basically the same. That was, and I'm going to jump out of the CW talk for a second. That was around the era where a lot of comic book characters were being introduced or introducing sidekicks. Sidekicks were like the thing to have. Captain America had to have Bucky's. Batman had, of course, Robin is the archetype, and everybody else underneath that had to have some form of sidekick. So, just because we wanted, and then, the long and short of that is that they wanted to make sure that kids had somebody relative to identify with. That's the only purpose that the sidekick serves. So
and the point that I was making is, if you have been a comic book fan and then you watched that first episode of Arrow and then they showed Thea, his sister, as being called Speedy, automatically you're like, okay, there's no costumes going on. I don't know what they're doing. He's going around beating up people. I don't know why. We keep seeing these flashbacks that look like, Batman Returns, and now you're saying that Speedy, who's supposed to be a guy, Roy Harper, you know what I'm saying? We all know, Roy Harper, the Red Arrow, is Speedy. He was his, but
on the
there's
show,
nothing wrong with that because eventually we get to that. They did bring in Roy and they did bring in the character, the Red Arrow. So, but I missed that. I didn't get to that point. You know what I'm saying? So I had already been I had already, dropped off.
He had logged out by then. He had logged out of Arrow at that point. So, look, anybody that's listening to this, we're not saying that Arrow is a bad show or anything like that, because I know it might come off
Arrow bashing.
It's not Arrow bashing, but, I had him on because he was a huge fan of The Flash, and that kind of retroactively made him watch a lot of these shows. Arrow included, but he hasn't gone through all 5 seasons worth of it. So, and I just want to get the honest opinion about why Arrow didn't catch him off the rip and Flash did. So, but anyway, we know what Arrow did do for you is that it gave a backdoor pilot essentially to the Flash. And I know you look at the Flash as more of a linchpin to the Arrowverse than Arrow is, even though Arrow is the root of all of it. But Flash has been far more engaging for you and pretty much the catalyst of the superhero element and the supervillain element of the universe that they are now creating.
The CW.
The CW.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at. Whereas to when you asked me about why would I say the Flashverse as opposed to the Arrowverse, and it's not necessarily bashing the Arrow or anything like that, but you just hit it. You just hit the nail on the head. The Flash has been the centerpiece for bringing the rest of these shows together in the CW universe. Granted, like you said, you had Barry Allen show up in the Arrow, and from Barry Allen being on the Arrow, you spun off and you got Barry Allen as the Flash on his own TV show. From the Flash, you go to his Rogues, and from his Rogues, you got Heatwave and Leonard Snart, a.k.a. Captain Cold, which wind up spinning off into DC Legends of Tomorrow as they became part of the team for the Legends, which brings you into a whole nother gallery of superheroes introduced from the Legends. So, yes, Arrow is the beginning, and Barry came from the Arrow, but everything else came from the Flash.
Okay, so let's go into the Flash. That we got the Flash, which the television show began in 2014. That first aired on October 7th of that year. For anybody interested in the comics version of that, the original Flash appeared in Flash Comics #1. That was the one that looked more like Mercury, which does appear in the Flash TV series. The modern Flash, as we know him today, first appeared in Showcase #4. So, going into the Arrowverse version of the Flash, we have a pretty heralded version of this. I don't think that you have a lot of fans who crapped on it. I think it was a very positive review across the board. So much, in fact, that when Flash was announced, and I'm getting into the theatrical versions now, that when Flash was announced to appear in the upcoming Justice League movie, you had people legitimately mad that the actor who plays the Flash in the television show not appearing as the Flash in the movie, or at least they wanted him to appear as the Flash in the movie, which, you know, kind of, I guess that kind of sucks for him for the payday, but, you know, other than that, I mean, I guess he was doing a good job for people to have took it that seriously. And by the way, the actor Grant Justin. So a lot of people wanted him and that version of the Flash to appear in the movie, in the movies that's coming up, I should say. So, well, you know, I'm going to start with that. What did you even think about that? Did you hear about that when people were saying, "Oh man, I wish Justin Grant would be in the Justice League"?
I was one of those.
You were?
I was definitely. I was guilty of that because.
Okay, so what you have against
I
can't pronounce. I think Ezra Miller. I think is the guy's. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, you know, don't jump on me. But Miller, Ezra Miller.
I think it's Ezra.
Ezra. Okay, so he's the guy that's playing the Flash in the movie. So, what was the big beef, man? Why you know, if you're gonna speak for the people at this particular point, what was the problem? Why weren't you willing to give this new guy a shot initially?
I'm not saying that I wasn't willing to give him a shot. I just felt that Grant Gustin had did such a phenomenal job as bringing the Barry Allen character just to the forefront. You know, I mean, he's done a wonderful job at playing Barry Allen in the Flash. Whereas Ezra, I haven't really seen much of Ezra as the Flash, except for that brief moment that we got in that movie that sucked. But we're not going to get into that.
We're not going to talk about the Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice right now.
Bruce,
I mean, we could talk about it. You can address it in a second word, but yeah, we'll definitely get into that one a little bit later on. And before I even go into that, I will go on record as saying that I didn't think it was as bad as people tried to make it out to be. But I certainly don't think it lived up to the hype.
If you got any sound effects, I need to hear a boo right now. But go ahead.
I certainly don't think it lived up to the hype, and I'll explain that in a later edition. And while I'm on the subject, for anybody that's looking to follow the posts that Doom likes to make as it relates to that, he does do it on Facebook on Fanboys TV. He does put up a lot of different articles and whatnot as it relates to shows and news clippings and
comics,
things of that, and
TVs,
comics.
anything that's going on. I try to keep everybody, anybody that wants to follow the page, come to the group, and like you said, anything comic book related, anything DC, Marvel. I try to just keep it posted and then keep everybody abreast on the changes that's coming up with these MC universes and the DC universe.
Okay, and also want to put out for the Movies and Stuff Facebook page, which I do handle on occasion, which is basically a lot of different posts and factoids about movies and things that have gone on through the years. Found a really good clip for you classic movie fans out there, the movie Airplane, and how it got a huge chunk of its dialogue from the 1957 movie 0 Hour. But that's neither here nor there. We'll go off into those things a little bit later. Okay, so Flash.
Interesting.
It is interesting. You should go in there and look at the clip. It's funny. But they haven't. That wasn't a secret. I'm not trying to imply that they stole the stuff, but that's where they parodied it from. Or at least that was a good chunk of the parody. But anyway, Flash. So Flash was a hit with you, and certainly with a lot of the fans out there. But now here comes the twist, in that Supergirl, which technically speaking was not part of the Arrowverse initially. Originally, it's part of the Arrowverse somewhat by default, because Supergirl aired on an entirely different network, and the president, I don't know if she's still the president of CBS at the time, her quote was, in speaking of Arrow and the Flash, those two shows are on a different network, so I think we'll keep Supergirl to ourselves for a while. That was the quote as it related to people asking what's the likelihood of seeing a crossover, because everybody knew that it was essentially the same production company and it was produced by the same people, but it landed on a different network, and the question was up in the air, like, okay, well, are we going to be able to see a Flash on there? Are we going to be able to see an Arrow appear on Supergirl? And now we want to rotate back that Supergirl came out the following year of the debut of the Flash. Flash was in 2014. Supergirl came out 2015, beginning on October 26th of that year. The first unofficial appearance of Supergirl is in Superman 123. And I want to make note that Supergirl that is in that comic is not the Supergirl that we know today. It was kind of, if we were talking in TV terms, that would be considered a backdoor pilot for Supergirl comics later on. It was the Supergirl that appears in there, although she looks the same, was basically a wish by Jimmy Olsen, and that created that particular version of Supergirl, which was the female duplicate or doppelganger of Superman. The actual Supergirl, as we know her today, appeared in Action Comics the following year in issue 252. And of course, Supergirl has gone through numerous changes in her origin story and been killed off and brought back, and there's everything under the sun.
You said Superman? You said Superman had been killed off and brought... Oh, Supergirl.
Supergirl.
DC. DC. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. DC. They kill off and bring back everybody. But okay.
Yes, they do. They do have a habit of doing that. Let's just go ahead and establish that. I know the comic book fans out there know that the death isn't permanent if you're a Superman or Supergirl or something like that. They've gone away, they've come back, and they've done it a number of times. But as it is,
right. Remember that time that Robin got killed and was dead? He's the Red Hood now.
Jason Todd.
I mean, not the Red Hood. He's the.
Well, yeah, he came back as the Hood. He took the moniker the Red Hood, which is a good animated movie, by the way. I'm sure we'll cover that at some point. But yeah, we have Supergirl who's come back in many different incarnations. One of which was Laura Vandervoot in 2007 on Smallville, but we know Melissa Noyce is Supergirl today, which also, for you fans out there, got the the original Supergirl, Helen Slater, playing the mother on the series. So that's like a little nod to
Easter
people.
egg.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hidden, but it's
Yeah.
a little nod to the fans. And of course, Vandervoot appeared on Supergirl as Indigo, as a villain. So even though she didn't come back as a hero, she came back as a villain, and Indigo / Brainiac 8. I did watch Supergirl. I went through that entire season. I enjoyed the series. I caught some of the Flash at the same time. So I did see the crossover, which was the world's finest episode, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the entire build of Supergirl that they got to. Not so much when they flipped over to the CW, but that's me. What were your thoughts on Supergirl when it began on the CW? On the CBS network.
I was interested to see the show and to see how they were going to do it. I was hoping that they would actually do some crossover episodes with the Flash.
What they ultimately did get.
Yeah, they did. But at first,
yeah.
I wasn't sure how they were going to do it. I was like,
I wasn't either.
It would be great if they could, but they're on two different networks. I don't know how that would work out, even though the networks are sort of related. But it would be great. And they did it. And when they did it, I was like, awesome. This is great. This is really freaking great. I don't know if you got a chance to catch the crossover episodes between Supergirl, Flash, Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow, where they did
Invasion
Invasion, right? The big crossover episode. I think, as far as TV goes, I don't know if that's ever been done before. But, kudos to Marvel, because I will say that, Marvel has kicked a fire in DC's ass to try to get something going. Because whatever they're doing with those movies that suck, but we're not going to talk about those, they're doing a great job with the TV shows.
Okay, so you're a far bigger fan of the crossover and the build from one thing to the next in the television universe than you are DC's film
definitely.
universe.
Definitely.
Okay.
Because like me and you have discussed before, the problem is Marvel has had years to develop this buildup of characters and origins and just being connected to these characters, whereas DC is trying to do the same thing with their cinematic universe, but I think with their television universe, they've accomplished that. Because even though, like we said, it did start with Arrow, but a lot of those characters, somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the comments or anything. I'm not perfect, but I do think that the Flash has been, where the majority of their characters has come from. And like I said, the Flash has stayed true to the comics for the most part, like we said, with some liberty. So as a comic book fan, you can follow that. And then when you get into, the spin-offs and, and everything, it was a build-up. You had 2 seasons of Arrow, a season of Flash, a season of Supergirl. I'm just talking about before the next one started. Of course, they've all got more seasons, but I think you had 2 seasons of Arrow, then you had the Flash. Then I think by the second season of Flash, you had the first season of Supergirl.
Yeah.
I think.
Basically, yeah. By season 2 of Flash, Supergirl was kicking off.
Right. And then by the time the first season of Supergirl was kicking off, then you had the Legends of Tomorrow about to pop off. So there's your build-up. You had like I said, you had a few seasons, to get invested into the Arrow, to kick off the universe. Then you brought in Barry Allen. Now you're expanding your universe. You're going from this dark city to this bright city. And Legends of Tomorrow. We haven't talked anything really about the Legends. I like the Legends.
Well, we haven't gotten there yet.
I like the Legends.
I know.
When they introduced the Legends, I was, coming from Supergirl. I said, Supergirl is good, and then here comes this other show, Legends. Like, what are they gonna do, man? who's going to be in this show? Who are these people? Who the hell are the legends? I had no idea.
I didn't either, but now let me rewind this back, just a tad, and get back to the Supergirl TV show, which again, by all accounts, technically wasn't part of the Arrowverse. Like, that was kind of adopted because of the cancellation off of CBS, which did put the show in limbo for a brief period of time. People were wondering whether it was going to return in any shape, way, or form. It did, in fact, return to television, but it returned to the CW, which did constitute some changes as far as the production and the budget was concerned. Not just the production and the budget, but it constituted some changes as related to just the show in general, which I didn't necessarily see coming. We had the introduction of Superman's arch enemies, mother and sister, with Lillian Luthor and I forget the mom's name. Is it Lena? I might have okay. Yeah. Lena's the daughter. Lillian is the mother. Which of course, they just made it out like being evil is in their DNA. I didn't really get that. Hank Henshaw, which in the comic is a little bit different. Of course, we addressed James Olsen, who's different than the Jimmy Olsen character, who for whatever reason decided that I got to be a fighter too, and became the Guardian in season 2. Alex comes out the closet and is now introduced as a gay character, and you got the various aliens that pop in and out on a day-to-day basis per episode, and of course we got to say that it should be addressed that Supergirl, although on the same network now, still is a universe apart, as her Earth is a different Earth than the Arrow and the Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. So she kind of sits on her own, even though they, in as it related to that invasion episode, they have basically shown you that if we have to get her, we can.
And they have.
And they have. They got her, just because it was aliens and we need extra help. So let's go get her. So that's a lot. That's a lot, it just in the change. I felt like going into season 2 with Supergirl, they I'm not saying that all the changes were bad. Let's get that out. But it felt to me as if they took a swift detour from what they were originally planning.
As far as with Supergirl,
as far as the Supergirl, as far as the plot lines, and again,
I think they listen to the fans. I think they listen to the fans like they should have from day one.
What? Okay, now I'm going to address 2 things on there that gave me that impression. One, the whole deal with building up the relationship between James Olsen and Kara, only to have that rug yanked out the second season 2 kicked off, and it's like, what was all that for? Why did we go through all of this to just pull that away?
Wait. You missed it. Okay, right. There was the whole thing with James and Kara, and then it went from what's the other guy's name? You
talking about the one that had the crush on her?
Yeah, the one that had the crush on her, and then so you had that freaky little love triangle going on.
Yeah,
which was weird.
But she nixed that in the bud. Pretty much season 1, they kind of, okay, this isn't going to happen. I like you, but I like you as a friend, and I was fine with all that because we knew, according to season 1 at least, we knew that was a losing battle for him because she had her eyes on somebody else. That
wasn't as big of a problem for me as the Guardian.
That seemed just ridiculous. That came out of nowhere. I was like, and basically because I'm tired of getting
crime fighter.
Yeah, I'm basically tired of getting my ass kicked. I want to fight crime too. So he just comes out of the blue, and not just does he come out of the blue, but the dude agrees to it. He's like, Wynn agrees to give him a suit. I don't know. So and again, I'm not knocking the show But I am saying it seems to me that shift from CBS to the CW on the surface created the necessity to change stuff around. Like we can't, for whatever reason, we can't do what we were planning to do anymore. So let's fix it. That's what it felt like to me. And I wish that I had, somebody that could verify, somebody that was inside or writing or something like that could say that's exactly what happened, or no, that's not what we did. I wish that I could get that, and maybe we will at some point. But what say you? I mean, what did you feel about the changes? Because when I go back and I'm like you in some of these things, I'm being retroactive and looking, watching episodes of The Flash, watching episodes of Arrow, but by all accounts, when I look at that, anything that came in to those shows feels organic to me. It doesn't feel like it came out of the blue, and it doesn't feel like, okay, we got to change this real quick. And even when they did change
like it was rushed.
It didn't feel rushed.
And
exactly.
Yeah.
And even with
they had
a
agree
quick change, and okay, I'll use the Flash. Flash may technically have had a change in characters suddenly, but it was a change in characters in relation to a time paradox. So it fit.
Yeah.
Right?
It's again DC and those wonderful escape clauses, between the multiple Earths and the time travel. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do.
You can, but I'm just saying it just, and to me,
it
seemed like that was a rush.
But it sticks. And see, that's what I was saying. Because of the Flash, no matter what they do, it all seems to make sense. Because for one, if you're a comic book fan and you're a fan of the Flash, you're well aware of Flashpoint, which is a big story arc. And like I said, I once again, I'll refer to it as the Flashverse again, because most of the stuff that takes place in this television universe, it all sometimes revolves around the Flash. Because even when you go, and I know, not trying to escape off, but when you get into the bridging of Supergirl and the CW universe, it was Barry. Because Barry has the capability of going from one Earth to another Earth, or going from one time to another time. Like I said, time travel, Earth travel, whatever you want to, dimension travel, whatever you want to call it. So, to me, the glue is Flash. And because of those clauses, no, they haven't put anything in there that seems out of place to me. Now, there's millions of comic book fans out there that might just totally disagree with me and say, oh, this guy is stupid, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and that's cool. But to me, when I watch the show, like you said, with the Flash, it seems like a great continuity. The only thing that I did have a problem with in Supergirl was when it went from CBS to the CW, is the fact that they took out Cat Grant. She was there for a couple, and I actually happened to like the relationship that Cat and Kara had with each other. It I guess it was maybe too Superman-ish.
Well, I think it was a monetary thing, because them leaving CW them leaving CBS to go to CW did cut the budget. So I think that was mainly an issue of monetary value, opposed to whether they wanted to keep her there or not. Because I believe that.
But I'm saying with that, is to answer your question. That's what I'm saying. To answer your question is, with Supergirl, those were some of the things that I did have an issue with. But those were mainly writer things, because you have a story that's like we were talking about, this love triangle. You had Jimmy Olsen, and then what is that guy's name?
You talking about his character name or the actor?
No, the character, the guy that she works with that had a crush on her.
James? It's Wynn. Wynn Scott.
Wynn. Yes.
Yeah, Wynn.
Yes.
That's the guy that had the crush on her.
Right.
So he was part.
He had that love triangle between Wynn and Kara and James
and I didn't have a problem with
and
that.
then you bring in Cat, and you had Cat's son come in, and he had an interest in Kara. So the only problem with that, like I said, as far as with Supergirl, it was very love related, if that makes sense. It's not. It's centered around a lot of different types of relationships. You also have the relationship, like you mentioned, with her sister.
Yeah.
So, whereas in The Flash, the only relationships that you're really going to get into is the relationship between Barry and Iris. You may have a couple of side relationships there where Joe may have a relationship, but Joe's main thing is to protect his children, which are Wally, Barry, and Iris. That's the relationship there. You have the relationship, like I said, but... Supergirl, it revolved around that, and that's the only really problem I had. It can get more in depth into the superhero aspect of the show, like the Flash does. Let me get more action. Let me get more villains. But I guess it's the Superman thing. I mean, it's hard to write for Kara because, I mean, how many villains can you put against Supergirl? I mean, I don't know.
That could legitimately be perceived as a threat. Yeah. I mean, that is the thing. And then when you introduce Superman, that makes it worse. which I didn't,
Who can they not defeat?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. Now, I will say this before I move on out to Legends of Tomorrow. I will say, I thought they did a good job season 1 in kind of, I mean, it was corny, but at least it worked in that we have to find a way that Superman can't be here. And he can't help you. So they found ways to kind of work around that, even when it was a life-threatening Earth, possibly in danger.
We need Superman.
We should have Superman, but something happens. He's off a galaxy away. We can't find him, or something along those lines that happened to where he was unavailable. Now they changed that when they got into season 2, and
when they brought him in,
they did bring in Superman. Yeah. But again, what do you present against this guy is Superman. How does he and Supergirl not survive whatever it is that they're up against? How do they not get, how do they not come through? How do they not defeat the threat? Superman's hard enough to.
How do you make it believable?
Yeah, he's. Every once in a while, they had a character that came up that did present a viable threat. I thought Indigo was a viable threat. I thought some of the escapees of the Phantom Zone were presented as a viable threat. Those things made sense to me. And that was a very linear story, and I got it. I didn't necessarily have a problem with the relationships other than, again, I thought that whatever story that they were trying to tell in season 1, by the time they got to season 2, it's like, all right, just screw it, let's start over. And they just decided to go someplace else.
Makes sense, because by the time you get to season 2, now you've entered them into the CW universe, DC CW universe, right? So now we've broken down the relationship aspect of the shows from the writer standpoint. Like I said, Supergirl, in my aspect, and from my point of view, it deals with more, how should I say, grounded, human-like feelings.
Yeah.
With, you know what I'm saying? With like I said, with the boyfriend and girlfriend, those mutual relationships. You don't get a lot of those in the other shows. You know what I'm saying? So that has an appeal, I guess, that is written like that to appeal to a more feminine audience.
I would guess so.
You have to have a more, because of, the storylines are more emotional. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Kara's and like I said, with Kara being in that, I like Jimmy, but then I like this guy, and this guy, he's so cute. That's girl stuff. I mean, it's girl stuff. Of course, the Flash. When it's funny because I was watching some previews and they kept calling Barry emo Barry from the future because he's all emotional and crying because Iris is dead. But but hardcore comic characters, we live to see the fight. What's the fight? But I'm getting off topic. But what I was trying to get to is what you were saying about as far as the threats. And now, the threats aliens. The only thing that can play a viable threat to a Superman or a Supergirl is not a human threat, like a Lex Luthor, because you know he's going to come, but another alien threat, because Superman and Supergirl are aliens. So the only way that you can constantly keep having these conflicts that can possibly put this alien, Superman / Supergirl, in danger is to have another alien come in, because you don't know what this alien's strengths are.
On a physical
makes
level.
Sense to me.
Yeah. Now, as far as just an overall threat, now they, because they in their universe they've established the Luthors as like all of them are practically geniuses. Yes.
Oh, God.
Look, and here again, now I said it earlier. It's like the show essentially makes you believe like, okay, this is just in the DNA. It's either, if you're a Luthor or you're a genius. Now I believe the daughter, I think, is a stepdaughter, but still, she's a genius. That all of them are like ridiculously smart. And now I don't remember whether she.
My favorite Luthor is from Smallville. I like the Smallville Lex Luthor.
Well, yeah, I mean he.
As far as TV universes is concerned, let me clear that up.
Okay. And he was a good Luthor, he played a great role, even down to being willing to shave his head, which most people aren't willing to do when they take the character on. Very few of them have done it. They do the bald wig or something like that. But yeah, I mean it's they have portrayed the Luthors as the mental equivalent to Superman or Supergirl, quote, in this reality. That is what leverages things out as far as that is concerned. But okay, so we've done enough of Supergirl. Supergirl has been a reasonable show. I didn't necessarily care for the flip around from one network to the next in terms of storyline, but that's me. Anybody else that has any complaints or like it, didn't like it, leave it in the comments below or wherever you happen to be listening to this. But now, Legends of Tomorrow, which was a spin directly from the Flash, which I guess goes back to kind of support your point of Flash being one of the major linchpins of the Arrowverse. Or the CW universe. That show did begin on the following October after Supergirl, so it's all fall season releases. And that was in 2016. The show began on October 13th, and you got DC's Legends of Tomorrow, or just Legends of Tomorrow, whichever you happen to prefer. And so now you've gone from having television shows which have focused and centered on one primary character, as in Arrow, as in Flash, as in Supergirl, to now you have a group, which I guess opens up the door for some
characters.
More characters and some fun things to go on there. And the roll call you got Firestorm, Atom, Rip Hunter, the White Canary, Hawk Girl, Hawkman, Heatwave, Captain Cold, Vixen, Steel. Those are the primary characters, and of course, you've
got Eobard Thawne, which is Reverse Flash. Well, the Legion of Doom. Let's just put it that that's where the Legion of Doom came from. The Legion of Doom came from Legends of Tomorrow, which is Reverse Flash, Malcolm, and Damien Dark.
Okay. So the Legends of Tomorrow show, which again, you got the group there. What have you felt about this program thus far? And I have to, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the fact that, if you're branching off, this one has a little bit of a secondary branch, as does Arrow and the Flash, with Vixen, because Vixen has her own kind of little mini animated series, which comes on CWC, which is a very easy watch for anybody that hasn't watched it. If you haven't checked it out, if you haven't even heard of it, I'm going to say go ahead and hit CW Seed up, and you should see Vixen. And as I said, it's a very easy watch. The episodes are like 2 or 3 minutes long. And at the end of the season, they just compile them all, which basically comes down to about 20, 25 minutes in total. So you can see everything all at once. It basically looks like a one-off cartoon. Pretty fun to look at. And they have integrated the characters from all of the shows, minus Supergirl, into that CWC.
Yeah, in that show, you got the Flash, you got the Arrow, you got Cisco. So all of they've taken your TV universe characters and put them into an animated universe with Vixen, which is pretty cool and pretty interesting. Which doesn't line up with any of the other DC animations, but it's just I think. I'm not sure. I guess it still maintains its own universe there, even though it's an animated universe.
Yeah,
but Vixen is a very good show. I actually like Vixen. I actually like the character that plays her on Legends of Tomorrow. She does a good job. I like the fact that with Legends of Tomorrow you get a lot of action. Like I said, for you hardcore comic book fans out there that like action, that's where Legends of Tomorrow comes in. Every episode is, they're fighting something, they're time traveling. Once again, there's DC in that time travel, but these guys have a time travel spaceship, which is even more.
Which gives them more ways to get out of stuff, regardless of what happens.
As we have evolved in this conversation to talking about time travel and spaceships, let's go back to the beginning of the conversation where we talked about a guy who comes back from being shipwrecked to beat up people who have done his town wrong to spaceships and time travel.
Well, now, didn't you say that within that crossover miniseries, he basically addressed that? He more or less addressed that he's not the elephant in the room, but he sticks out like a sore thumb. Like everybody else here has something that I don't.
They do.
And that more or less what he's saying. He's like, I started off like this, and I wound up going from fighting criminals and technology to metahumans to now dealing with aliens, and how do I fit into that?
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, but look, man, if you want to talk about anybody that does it best, Bruce Wayne. I'm not gonna lie, that's one of my favorites because I'm waiting to see him done properly. They keep changing stuff with movies and all that stuff, but Bruce Wayne is the ultimate badass because this dude has no superpowers, but can go toe to toe with any of the worst villains out there. Who else can do that?
They pretty much built him up to be the guy. As far as DC lore is concerned, Batman he's Batman, which I'm glad you brought that up before I'll get back to Legends of Tomorrow, because I know at some point I saw somebody had said something along the lines like, I think they're going to have Batman appear in the CW universe. I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and address that.
I did hear that. I did hear that.
I heard that, but in relation to how I heard it illustrated, like that is a unconfirmed rumor, and there's really no meat to that at this point. I wouldn't put a lot of stock into that as so long as Gotham is on the air. That's me. Now I could be wrong, but I remember Fox essentially saying that we own all rights as it relates to Batman and Batman related characters / materials for television. They don't own that for theatrical release, but as far as television, live action. If you're doing animated, they could do Batman. If you're doing a theatrical release, you could do Batman. But you more or less got to get permission from Fox if you're going to use Batman on TV.
Yes.
Because they need, that they'd have to like sublease the character to somebody else. And the reason that this person stated this rumor is because of an off comment that happened on the Supergirl episode. I think my cousin teamed up with a vigilante once, got a lot of gadgets and a bad attitude, something along those lines. That ain't enough.
Yeah, that's exactly.
It's like that.
Well,
I'm sorry, that's not enough to say that, yeah, Batman's coming. Because people have been had that rumor for Smallville for years, and he ain't never showed up on that show. People went to town with that.
I think that's just a loophole. It leaves you open, sort of like what Marvel did in Ant-Man before they had the rights to use Spider-Man.
Yeah, okay.
They referenced him as a guy who calls up. Yes, but because they referenced him, when they did get the license to use him, they were able to say, "Oh, this is when we referenced him."
Yeah, they could. And you're right. Now it could be that CW will fork out the money and get Batman in there. That's possible. Now, considering that they don't.
But I'm with you. I don't see it happening no time soon.
Yeah, I was gonna say considering that they don't necessarily have the money, because everything that they're saying, like every dime that they got going to the effects and the paying the cast and the crew and all that stuff like that. So I don't see where this extra cash is gonna come from to be like, all right, we got to license out Batman.
I think what they're doing is they're building up, and I could be wrong, but they're building up their universe to create more revenue, and they've got a lot more steam behind them in their universe than Fox has with Gotham. I mean, I watched the first season of Gotham, and I was like, I can't even do it. I don't know where they're going with it. I mean, I was cool with it at first, like, oh man, this is going to be kind of cool. You get to see Bruce Wayne as a kid, but it's boring. It's just boring.
I'm not a fan of prequel stuff because, in my view, because I am a comic book reader, none of the stuff that takes place on TV prequels mean anything to me. And and that's me because you're being retroactive, and now you're trying to introduce all these characters, which basically goes directly against any origin story that they have written down within the comics. Because now you're saying that, okay, Penguin didn't start off this way. He actually was hustling as a 14-year-old in clubs or whatever the heck was going on. And then I can understand them saying that we're going to make the story about Gordon and all this stuff. And I don't want to get off talking about Gotham right now, but I get what they were trying to do, and it is TV, and they can take their creative liberties, and they can go into a different route. But I've never been a real fan of that, which is a large part why I looked at Smallville for a while, but then I kind of veered off of it. So anyway, this Legends of Tomorrow. You do enjoy the show. You think that the concept is good, and they have maintained the integrity of the DC television universe. That's a fair statement to say.
Yeah, I think what Legends of Tomorrow brings to the DC television universe is the capability to add those other characters in. Because with The Flash, like I said, you have the Cisco and Barry with the capabilities to travel from different universes and different times, but also you have that same capability in Legends of Tomorrow, which pretty much happens every episode. Yeah. Because they're set inside of a time machine, a spaceship.
Spaceship with time travel capability.
That gives them the creative freedom to bring in any character from the DC universe that they have access to into that show, and then from that show it can branch out into the other shows. So Legends of Tomorrow is pretty much the DC television universe's entry point. It can be the entry point for a lot of things. And the only thing that I would have to say a negative about Legends of Tomorrow was the main character. I didn't like him, Rip Hunter. He was the guy who put the Legends together. His story. He's from the future, the far, far, far future, and then he goes back in time and gets these legends together and puts them, together as a team. And eventually when you get to season 2, I want to say, when you get to season 2, you kind of lose Rip Hunter. And then they bring him back, And then by the end of the season again, then he leaves because he says, looks like the team is gelled together and they don't really need him. And I agree. They don't. They don't need him. He's annoying.
So you're saying that Rip Hunter, he served his purpose, but he doesn't really add anything to the overall feel of the show.
I didn't like his character.
Okay.
I think I didn't like his character. Then the other characters I'm great with. I mean, what they did was they took a lot of the other sideline characters from the other shows and they became main characters in Legends. Like you have Professor Stein and Jackson, who come together and they make Firestorm, which came from the Flash. Those characters came from the Flash. You got White Canary, came from Arrow. Who else do you have? Firestorm, White Canary, which is Sarah. Like you said, Hawkgirl and Hawkman, they came from Flash.
Yeah. Because
Hawkgirl was initially a love interest of Cisco. Initially. And that's when they started to integrate the story with the Legends, because Vandal Savage was the connectivity between the Legends and Flash. Vandal Savage was the villain, and he was the villain of the first season of Legends of Tomorrow. By the time you get to the second season, it's no longer Vandal Savage that they have to deal with, but now it's the Legion of Doom, which the Legion of Doom came from Arrow. Well, for the most part, except for, of course, Reverse Flash, who came from the Flash,
okay,
who's part of the Legion of Doom, Eobard Thawne.
Which is a callback to the old Super Friends show for you younger viewers out there, or for younger listeners.
Go ahead and break it down for them younger listeners.
I'll just say, who don't necessarily know anything about the Super Friends. That was the Legion of Doom, the primary villains or the primary opposition for the Justice League, aka Super Friends, on that particular cartoon, and it's kind of grown in years, because I know that they just more or less just came up with the name. Just because we needed to have a name for a group and not infringe on any copyrights of the DC characters. So they just, all right, we'll just call them Legion of Doom. But if you want to know where that comes from, that comes from Challenge of the Super Friends. That was back in 1978. Yes, it's a long time ago, but the Legion of Doom name still kind of lives on. So there you have it. Not to be confused with the Legion of Doom, the wrestlers, the Road Warriors.
Speaking of the Legion of Doom, I don't know if anybody, any of the fellow watchers, have caught the nod or the Easter egg that Star Labs plays, because there are scenes where Star Labs takes on the look of the old nod to the Justice League Hall of Justice. The same.
Oh yeah, the building. Yeah, that thing is here again. The Hall of Justice. That's another one of them things that just kind of worked itself into the main continuity of the comic books and whatnot. It's been incorporated into it. So yeah, the Hall of Justice. In fact, I think a lot of that promotional material when they did the invasion thing, Hall of Justice was sitting right there in the background.
Yeah, and then I think they did an episode on the Legends of Tomorrow where the Hall of Justice looks like, what was it in the old TV show where the Legion of Doom was at? It was
the Hall of Doom.
The Hall of Doom.
It was a mobile kind of a dome shaped, almost like a flying saucer type deal. But
exactly. Now, which only true, like, people who remember that would catch those nods to when they show those clips of Star Labs, like in the Flash. Okay, Star Labs, it looks like Star Labs, and then There's another point where it takes on the look of the Hall of Justice, and then when there's an episode, if you follow the Legends of Tomorrow, where the reality also gets altered in the Legends of Tomorrow, where the Legion of Doom, where it becomes Doom World. So here's another thing about that universe. You have two different story arcs. You have one where there's Flashpoint, where everything changes because of the Flash, and then you also have what's called Doom World, where the Legion of Doom gets a hold of the Spear of Destiny and changes reality. But that's a whole other story. But in that reality, when it changes, you see the Hall of Doom, or yes.
See that there's so much stuff to cover as it relates to just the CW universe and just comic books in general, because you almost can't talk about it without talking about everything else. But the long and short of it is that the CW universe is complex and potentially still growing. I mean, so as we're kind of wrapping it up, you did present to me that they were in production. I guess technically on was this a fourth show that they integrated, potentially integrated into the Arrowverse?
A fourth and a fifth. Because you have Black Lightning. Now, it's not confirmed yet whether Black Lightning is going to be a part of that CW universe or how it's going to fit into it, but everybody's speculating that it might. And then you also have the coming of the new Titans show, which everybody's excited about.
Okay. So those are...
And they're not going to call it Teen Titans because of the fact that, a lot of these characters are not going to be teenagers, aka, as you know, Wally West from The Flash is not a teenager, but he's not as old as Barry and a lot of the Arrow or any of the other characters. He's a young. So, I guess my assumption would be that they're going to be somewhere. I guess the younger sidekicks. Maybe they'll integrate Roy Harper's Speedy character in there from the Arrow. I can see Kid Flash coming from, Wally West coming from the Flash. Don't know where. And see, here's the problem: when they add Dick Grayson into this as Nightwing, there has to be some connectivity to a Batman. Which brings in the problem of whether they're going to add a Robin, because they can't really add a Robin, which would be Damian Wayne. Excuse me.
Now they can reference Batman.
Because
that much they can do. They can always reference it, but as we said, they may not mention them by name possibly, but they can always reference the old, I learned from the best, or whatever. I got my tools right. You know what I mean. No need for them to say
sort
his
of like
name.
Powerless. Not to
get
out of the CW universe, but to bring in another DC based show, you have Powerless, which shows on what network is Powerless? NBC.
NBC. Yes.
NBC. Okay. Now they don't have the rights to Batman, of course. We know Fox does.
Yeah.
But for somehow they are able to reference Batman and Bruce Wayne and Wayne Enterprises. Now, you never see Batman, but you have seen a Batarang.
Mm-hmm.
They've showed the Batarang, and they've mentioned Batman. You've never seen him, and I think you'll never see him. But if you want to be technical, Fox has never showed Batman either. They've showed this little kid that they're calling him Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, and they probably won't show Batman, but not. Now the difference there is that I think they just own the rights to have it if they want it. Now, is that fair that they would have it and more or less kind of sit on it,
not use it,
and not use it? No, but that's what they paid for. And and unless some other deal gets worked out, I don't think that's going to go anywhere. But stranger things have happened. I mean, we're living in an era now where, believe it or not, you got Marvel Studios, which is basically bought the sublease the rights from somebody that they've leased the rights to in the first place, which is ridiculous. But, that's the way business works, man. They leased it out to Sony, and Sony leased the rights back. So, yeah.
Well, Sony only did that because
they needed to.
Their movie sucked.
But now we won't go into Amazing Spider-Man 2 because I got some thoughts about Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I still maintain I think that it was a little bit unfair to Garfield because I thought he did a fine job, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, from what I'm reading, Black Lightning is still a production of Bertolini, which is basically the guy or the production company that has housed Supergirl and Arrow and the Flash and Legends of Tomorrow and all that good stuff. So I guess they're riding the wave right now, and that they have already got this much stuff going and going good. So let's hit it again, and let's not skip over the fact that we know Luke Cage being successful.
I knew you was about to go there.
We know Luke Cage being successful on Netflix has every reason that this thing is doing.
It reminds you of the 70s, doesn't it, huh? Let's put a black guy out there. Hey, man, you know what? They got a black guy. Let's get us a black guy, too.
Yeah, in this case, it's more like, well, who do we own that we can just toss out there real quick? All right, Black Lightning. That'll work. So, yeah.
Yeah.
We know that's coming. We know.
Yeah. Now, I'm surprised they went with Black Lightning as opposed to, I thought I heard some years back that they were going to do a Static Shock. But instead of a Static Shock, they're doing Black Lightning.
Static Shock would have been nice because they've already established him. They had him on the cartoon some years ago, so he's not as unheard of a character as I guess previously when he was just the comic book thing, and they weren't officially DC. They were Milestone Comics being distributed by DC, but now they're owned by DC, and they're part of that universe. So, I mean, I would have liked to have seen it. I think that Static Shock as a character was probably about as close to just I know this is going to sound like an odd comparison, but the early incarnation of Spider-Man as you were going to get. In that Spider-Man, when he was first introduced, was the teenage hero trying to fit in with all of the major heroes back in his era, which is pretty much what Static Shock was. He was just a teenage kid trying to fit in with all these heroes around him who were more established and stronger and this, that, and the other. But he had to use his brains to kind of succeed, whereas just straight up power wouldn't do it. But, again, hey, if they're going to do Black Lightning, I'm fine with Black Lightning. I'll give the series a shot. But that is the next leg.
I'm going to tell you like this. Just like you said, I'm willing to give it a shot, too. And you know why I'm willing to give it a shot? Because of Marvel. So DC needs to thank Marvel, because Marvel has done an excellent job at taking B and C list comic characters and turning them into mainstream heroes. So, for most people who don't know about Black Lightning, if DC and CW do a good job with it, it could make Black Lightning a major character, as Marvel has done with Daredevil, Luke Cage, Doctor Strange. I mean, you can go
on and on with that. Okay, all right, well, there we have it, folks. That is the run of the CW universe, or at least our quick review of it. Which, ultimately speaking, if you haven't sat and watched it, if you're a comic book fan, you owe it to yourself to at least pick one or two shows out of the 4 to watch. I mean, I other than seasons 1 of Arrow, I mean, I can't say that they've all been bad, because I've gone sporadically. And again, I'm going to say that, all of these shows are streaming somewhere. So I've gone back and looked at it retroactively on Arrow, and I can't say that those later seasons are bad. I actually enjoyed them. He has a nice adventure that goes on, and it's a lot less built around, let me take on the local crime lord and the technology that they've acquired or whatnot. With him kind of being integrated into a superhero universe, he has superhero problems somewhat. So if you haven't taken the time, and I know it's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of TV, a lot of content, a lot of different various things. And in fact, there are, I'm not even going to say probably, there are more legs to the DC television universe that kind of connects somewhat through the CW universe than we're covering right now. But those aren't really big legs, so we're not going to talk about that. But you owe it to yourself.
And my suggestion is, for anybody out there, like I said, I personally didn't watch all of Arrow, but I'm definitely going to go back. So I would suggest if you haven't, start with Arrow, go to Flash, then go to Supergirl, then go to Legends of Tomorrow. And, it's one long, and you'll see how the universe intertwines, and you'll get wrapped up in it, especially by the time you get to Flash.
Yeah, we know that you're the biggest advocate for the Flash and all that stuff. But if you're somebody that just wants to see the superhero conflict, Flash is probably where you want to start. That they start off with superhero conflict from episode 1. I think was the Weather Wizard that he took on, if I remember correctly, in the first episode. So that right there, that tells the tale. There is no, let me start off with the small people and kind of work my way up. He starts right, he starts off running. So, no pun intended. So there you have it. Yeah, I will repeat, if you are a comic book fan and you haven't looked at it, you owe it to yourself to kind of look at least a good 2 of them. And if I'm going to suggest 2 out of the 4, I'm going to say Flash and Supergirl. I'm going to say Flash and Supergirl.
Okay, if I had 2, I would say Flash and Legends of Tomorrow.
Okay.
Because they have, and the reason I say that, because they have those 2 shows have the biggest impact on the reality of the universe.
Okay.
So
now I do say Supergirl for it is a standalone, and it works as a standalone, and I will put it out there that I felt that the crossover in that show felt a lot more special in my view. And centering on season 1, because I'm still iffy about season 2, but centering on season 1, I thought that the line of storytelling that they had there, I thought they did a great job in kind of getting her from point A to point B, from intrepid, nervous, nerdy, I don't know what I'm doing, to okay, I got my wings underneath me now, I'm a hero and I can handle this. So those are my things. And much like the Flash, it's not like you really have a lot of low-level criminals that you was dealing with there. There is the element of the fight. You can get around the relationship stuff that takes place in that. Yeah, it's in there, and they intertwine. I love him. He loves her. This, that, and the other. But it didn't feel as overwhelming as it became in season 2. In my view.
Right. You're right.
So that's it. Those are my suggestions. Mr. Green suggests Supergirl and the Flash. Doom suggests Legends of Tomorrow and the Flash.
Legends of Tomorrow and Flash.
Either way, Flash is a pretty solid pick. And I think that
we all agree that we all got to go back and watch. We all agree that we all got to go back and watch Arrow.
Yeah, got to go back and watch Arrow. Got to get that in there. So that I think that's going to cover that. We got a lot of ground on the CW stuff, and that's a good way to, I think, launch a new podcast talking about some of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Even though I didn't really crap on it too hard, but I will say going into the next episode, which I've kind of pulled out of the hat, and they're going to talk about the franchise reboot of the Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters 2016, which is the all-female cast. That is the next episode up. So if you got some opinions and questions and comments about the Ghostbusters, leave that wherever you happen to be listening to this. I know it's a pretty polarizing movie, one way or the other, but it had its moments. But I will say it's not going to necessarily just be all Ghostbusters 2016, because you can't really talk about that without talking about Ghostbusters 1, 2, and possibly the animated series before you get off into the reboot, because you got to know where it started, to know where it went to. So that is the next thing. That is next up on the list. I hope you be sure to come back and tune in for that. If you are wanting to make sure that you catch these things, please be sure to hit the like button. It ain't going to hurt you. You know, you're not going to lose any money for hitting the like or the follow or subscribe, wherever you happen to be. So you want to click that and at least pop up in your line, and you'll get the notification that something new is going along, so you can join in and make your comments, or you can correct me if I'm wrong, or you can just say, I don't know what I'm talking about. Whichever one, doesn't bother me. So that's that. Anyway, so there we have it, folks. We appreciate you listening to this Movies and Stuff podcast. I want you to catch us on the next go round, and we will see you then. Take care, everybody.